Recording. Yeah. So let's go Facebook Live. It's preparing live stream. So we are live now. We'll start. Kwe, hello, bonjour, assalamu alaikum, ni hao, namaste. Welcome to the International Panel on Equality and Fraternity in Canada. India-Canada Consortium, the World Multicultural Festival, and the Humans for Peace acknowledge that it is organizing and hosting this panel discussion on the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation, whose presence here reaches back to time immemorial. We wish all our Muslim friends a blessed Ramadan. We wish all our Irish friends a happy St. Patrick's Day today. Today, Canada is facing an unprecedented situation where the need for focusing on equality and fraternity is a must. It is must, as without it, Canada cannot move ahead. While the Constitution of Canada provides that every individual is equal before and under the law and has the right to the equal protection and benefit of the law without discrimination, and that everyone has the freedom of conscience, religion, thought, belief, opinion, expression, peaceful, assembly, and association, and guarantees those rights and freedoms equally to male and female persons, we are witnessing alarming deviations. The right to equality is fundamental to Canada. The right reflects the fondest dreams, the highest hopes, and finest aspirations of the Canadian society. The idea of equality is almost intuitively understood and cherished by all, and is the foundation for a just society which permits every individual to live in dignity and in harmony with all. The Canadian Bill of Rights was adopted by the Parliament of Canada in 1960 and remains in force. It recognizes non-discrimination in the exercise of key human rights and fundamental freedoms, specifically equality. Canada is a party to the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination. The convention recognizes that all human beings are equal before the law and are entitled to equal protection of the law against any discrimination and against any incitement to discrimination, and to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which provides that persons belonging to ethnic, religious, or linguistic minorities shall not be denied the right to enjoy their own culture, to profess and practice their own religion, or to use their own language for individuals to have a right to equality. It is essential to adopt empathetic and fraternal mechanism for their inclusion to create a just society. Everyone has the right to equality, but also the duty to include, to cooperate, and to trust one another. The goal of fraternity is to work together to achieve the highest quality of individual existence. Fraternity within a multicultural nation is borderless brotherhood, sisterhood, a sense of civic friendship, and social solidarity. Before we move on, we would want to introduce our elder Indigenous, Verna McGregor, who would do some prayers and also who would present a speech from the Indigenous community. She's representing the First Nations here. Verna McGregor is Algonquin, Omama Winnie, and is from the Kitigan Zibi Anishinaabe First Nation near Maniwaki, Quebec. Ottawa-Gatineau, the nation's capital, forms part of the Algonquin Nation's traditional unceded lands of the Ottawa River watershed. Her past experience includes having worked with the elders in holding of Algonquin language symposiums and also traditional native gatherings, Her past experience includes having worked in real estate, banking, and also economic development projects, such as a maple syrup processing facility for her First Nation, blending Algonquin tradition with technology. She has also worked for the various national native organizations, such as the Assembly of First Nations, the National Aboriginal Forestry Association, and Minwashin Lodge, Indigenous Women's Support Center, etc. Varna is requested to speak at various government organizations on various issues, including the comparison of worldviews. The stage is yours, Varna.
Oh, thank you, Miigwech Gypsy. Hello, everybody. Kwe kakena. Bonjour tout le monde. Welcome, kakena. Um, I just want to say thank you to Gypsy for the invitation today, and I'd like to welcome you here. I'm coming you from my community of Kitagon Zibi and as mentioned, I'm Algonquin or Mamaninua. Mamaninui means really the nomads. We are the Algonquin of the northeast of Turtle Island. And for those of you who don't know what Turtle Island means, it's um, North America, because if you look at it from a satellite view, uh, North America is shaped like a turtle, and there's many teachings to that. And so that's where the basis too as well of our understandings also in governance comes from. And before I do my little speech here too as well, I'm coming to you also, as Gypsy mentioned, Ottawa, Gatineau, the nation's capital, forms part of our traditional unceded lands. What does unceded mean is that we never signed treaty, similar to the treaties out west in relation to the land, but there are peace and friendship treaties that were signed. And what they mean is also too as well is when the British and French landed here, um, they realized that if the First Nations, especially on the northeast coast of Turtle Island, sided with some one or the other, they're at a disadvantage because they knew the land and how thick the bush was here. So they signed peace and friendship treaties, meaning really in essence what it was is stay out of our war. It's not your governance. It's not your war. In return, we promise that you maintain your um, way of life, really, and so we still have our covenants too, and a traditional governance, even of that two understandings of governance. So again, too, as well, it's that reconnection back. So on that note, I'm just going to say a little prayer. I have a little tobacco here, and I'll put that back to the earth because that was one of our protocols too. And I also lit a smudge for everybody, and that understanding, as in other cultures also, when we have the smoke, it's our connection from the physical world to the unseen world. And it's just recently too as well, we do this often because as again too, when you're in an urban setting, this becomes like a challenge these days, even the right to fire. So really too quickly, one of the understandings is, as I say often, is also that this is the medicine wheel. And one of the biggest teachings also was that there was, again, it represents the earth, the moon, the sun, but also too as well, one of the biggest teachings is our story is that there was four colors of people on the earth, and we were all given the original instructions to look after the earth. But the biggest understanding is regardless of our differences in understandings, our beliefs, our ways of worship, our language, our history, what binds us together is that we all share this earth and we all share the four elements, meaning the earth, the water, the fire, the air, but also, and so because it all connects all of us, whether we like it or not. And one of the biggest teachings too is what we do to the earth is we do to ourselves, and it's that interconnection of the four elements. So on that note, I'm just going to say miigwech Gaki Shandan Kakina, Mojene Kashkito, Jamawanto Sekonshe Nongo, Wamwe Kakina, Pamasa Jektiniswa Gonshe, Shwan Mishnoni Navigus, Wido Kakina, Je, Chiwani Ki watch, Chimino Pamazu watch, Ashitkan Oga Migadua Chenabigus, Big Wachonje Kakina Ete Kishagon Kisis Tibikisis Ashetanungshuk, Mam de Game Wachonje Shkai Shinka zone in the Kimanon, we do Kakina Janagdo Kakina Guch in the Kimanon, a shit Kakina Guch Nibi Punksing CB Sagan Kichigagam, Migwachonje Ishkode, Kagimi Jin, Chiminob Chitoyan, Migwachonje Nasewen, Kagimi Jin, Chimino Pamatsian, we do Kakina, the Jakas, a Jik Mame Nongum, Mame Nasewen. Migwachonje Kakina Jinuan Dognog, Mishomsinan, Gokmasnana Shichin Dabano Jishak. We do kakina awesi suck mitugog mishashkim kakina guchya the niswa goshe nindikimana gancheshquat nigwe de sim kuch nigwe de simen. We do kushin obigus mia migwach 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 migwach. Thank you. Merci is thank you in Algonquin. And I say it 4 times again just to honor the teachings of this medicine wheel, and also the understanding to going back now my little talk, as Gypsy mentioned, is also to as well Parliament Hill. It's interesting that this represents the 4 directions, the 4 seasons, the 4 stages of your life, the four elements too on earth that connect all of us. And I find that too as well because we're why I say Ottawa's the significance of Ottawa is Parliament is at this confluence at the center of the medicine wheel because of the 4 rivers the 4 directions of the rivers coming together at that confluence is where Parliament Hill is today. And I always say that it represents balance, and we need that balance even more so today because of all the turmoil in the world and and conflict too as well. And the conflict sometimes becomes complex and but what the elders mentioned too as well is the earth, we've done so much that the earth cannot, we're ruining the sustainability of the next 7 generations. Because also too as well, yes, conflict is always complex, but our use of weapons today is also more complex and more damaging to the earth to the detriment of the next 7 generations. And it's always that reminder that we're here for our children's children's children. And we are in prophecy too. We have these belts which were prior to colonization. And it foretold that the times we're in now where we need to come together regardless of our differences. And again, too, as well, that's where the guidelines from the United Nations, as Gypsy mentioned, are important too, as well. Also as a reminder, but also the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And when sitting with the elders too, as well, in the lodge too, we mentioned that too, is that we've welcomed um, people to our lands, and we've also respected their beliefs, and but as well too as well in a respectful way, and also with the understanding too as well of nonviolence. So here we are, and I thank you, Gypsy, and uh, for leading the discussion today. And I look forward to the panel discussions as well, because the other message too as well is because of this too. I always say this even with my openings too is we are all part of this. This is like a dream catcher, but it's also called, it represents the web of life, which is the spider teaching. For us, it spins or weaves the web of life, and it represents the interconnectedness of everything. So what we do to the earth, we eventually do to ourselves. And I remember having an event with Dr. Suzuki, and he mentioned that even the air, we're all breathing recycled air from our brothers and sisters from around the world, because it's only a small layer of air that's breathable. then also too as well, and we're forgetting to this reciprocity. And because here we are at this confluence here, at this crossroads. And so I think our discussion today is important. So I'm going to end there and pass it back to you, Gypsy. So I say miigwech.
Miigwech. Miigwech, Varna. Thank you so much. Thank you for the wonderful thoughts and the wonderful discussion. Thank you so much.
Oh, miigwech.
So before going into the panel discussion by the distinguished panelists, we would like to introduce our panel moderator and master of ceremony today, Sarah Onyango. Everybody knows Sarah. Sarah is all over, the greatest community leader I've ever seen. Sacrifices for everyone, doesn't want anything, but she gives. That's what Sarah is to me, an elder sister and a very good friend. Sarah is a citizen of the multicultural universe who has used her linguistic and networking skills to build bridges between different communities for several decades. She has hosted the monthly African cultural program Fontan from on Rogers TV Cable 22, Ottawa since 2002, as well as the weekly radio programs Black on Black and Africa Revisited on True 89.1 FM, University of Ottawa Community Radio, since the late 1990s. A passionate promoter of African and Caribbean culture and activities, Sarah has been actively involved in public relations work for various African and Caribbean diplomatic missions, as well as numerous community organizations such as Black History Ottawa Dreamkeepers, various Caribbean and African associations, as well as mainstream organizations such as OCISO, OLIP, and the United Way in 2003, seeing a need to connect mainstream Ottawa to its Black community. She created Black Ottawa 411, an online virtual hub providing information about the National Capital Region's Black community, businesses, organizations, and events. The website is run entirely on a volunteer basis by Sarah, and it has become an essential resource for media institutions and individuals seeking contacts or services in this very diverse community in the National Capital Region. Sarah's volunteer work has earned her many accolades, including United Way East Ontario Community Builder Award 2008-2011, Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal 2022, Ottawa Distinguished Swim 2023, and V. Oscars Lifetime Achievement Award 2023. This is a very short bio, which Sarah had sent me. There's a very long bio, so you can Google Sarah. Sarah is everywhere. Sarah, it's your stage now. Thank you so much for being here.
Miigwech, merci. Thank you very much, Gypsy, for that overly generous introduction. And I am among a constellation of great leaders. So every leader on this panel, from Elder McGregor on, I consider to be great community leaders and Canadian leaders. So without really saying very much, I'm just going to go straight into the panelists because the discussion is what's important. And I believe the first person who's going to be speaking is someone who really does not need much introduction. Yasser Naqvi at one point was Attorney General of Ontario. He is a longtime politician in the Ottawa region. He is currently the federal MP for Ottawa Centre, and I believe parliamentary secretary to the Minister of Health, if I'm not mistaken. And he at one point headed the Diversity Institute, which is probably why you invited him here to speak to us on this issue of equality and fraternity. A video from Yasser Naqvi.
Can you all see?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Hello everyone, this is Yasser Naqvi, Member of Parliament for Ottawa Centre. I want to firstly thank all of the organizers of today's event and panelists for participating in an important conversation such as this one. Now more than ever, we know it is important to celebrate the diversity and solidarity amongst multicultural and multi-faith communities. Diversity and inclusion are cornerstones of our Canadian identity, a source of social and economic strength, and something of which all Canadians can be proud. I am so proud of the work that our government is doing to support the values of multiculturalism and inclusion in our country. Some important steps our government has taken include the creation of funding programs to support Black-owned businesses, creating the Multiculturalism and Anti-Racism Program to promote dialogue on multiculturalism, and supporting the work of organizations committed to promoting anti-racism, diversity and inclusion, and advancing institutional and systemic change to make Canada a more inclusive society, free from racism and hate of any kind. Our government is committed to continuing this important work and helping support events and conversations like this to further our progress. I sincerely appreciate all of you attending and participating in events like these and hope to continue our work towards equity and inclusion together.
Thank you, Miss. Thank you.
Many thanks to Member of Parliament Siasser Naqvi, Member of Parliament of Ottawa Centre, for giving us that federal perspective. And now we're going to go local, the city of Ottawa to be exact, with remarks from Ralston King, who is the councillor for the Rideau Rockcliffe ward. He was elected there in 2019. And I just want to highlight from his bio that in order to advance anti-racism and race relations initiatives in 2020, he was appointed council liaison for anti-racism and ethno-cultural relations initiatives, where he was successful in establishing an anti-racism office and the city's first anti-racism strategy. Welcome to this conversation, Councillor King.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to join you. But before I begin, and I want to talk about some of the anti-racism initiatives that the city is undertaking, I'd also like to acknowledge that we're here on the unceded, unsurrendered land of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation. And we honor their long history of welcoming many nations to this beautiful territory and uphold and uplift the voices and values of all Indigenous people. At the city, we have acknowledged that we must increase our efforts to confront one of the most pervasive and insidious forces that continue to plague our city and country, racism. Racism in all of its forms represents a stain on the fabric of humanity, one that diminishes us all and undermines the very ideals of equality, justice, and dignity that we hold dear. The importance of anti-racism initiatives cannot be overstated. They represent our commitment to building a world where every individual, regardless of their race, ethnicity, or cultural background, can live free from fear. Anti-racism initiatives are not just about addressing overt acts of bigotry. They're also about dismantling the structural inequalities and systemic injustices that perpetuate racial disparities in education, employment, healthcare, and every other aspect of life. This is why I'm pleased that the City of Ottawa established an anti-racism secretariat in consultation with hundreds of residents. In fact, we consulted with over 1,000 residents to create the city's first anti-racism strategy in 2022 that outlines a blueprint to address racial disparities that impact the Black, Indigenous, and racialized communities. The city's anti-racism strategy aligns with the work of the City of Ottawa's Women and Gender Equity Strategy and the Municipal Reconciliation Action Plan for Indigenous peoples, and recognizes that we combat racism and discrimination, that in order to combat it, it's not sufficient to simply equip people with knowledge and tools. It's also important that we expose and address all forms of racism, whether overt and covert, interpersonal and institutional, current and historical, persistent and nascent, to aid in the advancement of equal opportunities when Ottawa residents deal with their municipal government. The strategy will enable substantive action that will meaningfully and measurably address the multiple barriers and disadvantages that many people in our city face. We've heard very clearly from Ottawa residents that they want issues of racial inequity addressed in governance, housing, economic development, health, child and youth development, and workplace and institutional practices. The 5-year anti-racism strategy provides 28 recommendations and 132 measurable actions to proactively identify and remove systemic barriers from city policies, programs, and services to help realize racial equity. Implementation of the anti-racism strategy will lead to data-based practical actions, which will enable systemic and structural change to create new models for diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's very important that the city take a leading role in ending all forms of discrimination and oppression in order to create an Ottawa where all residents are treated with dignity and respect. I'm extremely optimistic that we can be successful in this worthy and moral endeavor by ensuring that the strategies, recommendations, and actions are translated into substantive investments by Ottawa Council. And I'll leave you with this. I think that we're actually making traction on that. In the previous budget that we just passed, there was $120,000 that were dedicated to Black-led organizations that are undertaking this work. And in the budget previous to that, there was an extra $100,000 dedicated to and noting the challenges that we are now seeing with emerging hate due to emerging conflicts around the world. The city is working with the community to advance the creation of new anti-hate initiatives. So what I want to leave you with is the fact that we need to remember that the arc of history does bend towards justice, but it doesn't bend on its own. All of the initiatives that I was talking about were really advanced by the community. And it requires the concerted effort of individuals and communities willing to stand up and speak out against injustice, to challenge the status quo, and to imagine a better world for future generations. And so it's my hope that by embracing anti-racism initiatives, we affirm our commitment to that noble endeavor, and we honor the inherent dignity and worth of every human being. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Councillor King, not just for the call to action and the reminder that we all must participate in social justice initiatives, equality initiatives, etc., but also for what you've done. It's certainly probably not been easy being the first Black city councillor in Ottawa's history. Thank you so much for your leadership with this anti-racism secretariat at the city. Next, we have Dr. Pradeep Merchant, who is a pediatrician and neonatologist. He is the site chief of the Division of Neonatology at the Ottawa Hospital Civic Campus, and the medical director of the Rich Little Special Care Nursery, which he has been for nearly 25 years. Outside of his professional life, he's worked tirelessly with the Indo-Canadian community in Ottawa and across the country. He has been a volunteer for at least 2 decades for the Gujarati Cultural Association and has collaborated also with various Canadian charities on humanitarian initiatives. Dr. Merchant, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you again for Yasser and of course Ralston King to give you quite an introduction. Thanks, Gypsy, again for inviting. As you heard, I'm a medical physician. I'm actually on call today, so if I get called, I may have to actually get out. But I look after premature babies, and so I look at the premature babies. But this particular topic was an important and timely, and when Gypsy and I will participate and I will be a listener, but as an academician, because I teach at various universities, I thought, and when I looked at my rank in terms of when I was speaking, I thought I might take that academic approach. So before you guys dwell into the conversation about what is happening, let's actually examine what are we talking about in terms of equality and fraternity. Where did we start this, and how we landed in this in 2024? And I think that will give us a perspective of looking at the solution as well. So we all agree, and I think Councillor King actually said that equality and fraternity are two pillars that upholds the essence of a just and a cohesive society. Without that, I think we would fall apart. And I think that idea has come through for many years. The concept of equality is rooted in the principle that every individual, irrespective of their background, and that's an important thing, deserves an equal rights, opportunities, and treatment. Now, do we all get the same? Probably not, but a concept is there. It serves as a cornerstone of a justice, promoting a society where fairness prevails and discrimination finds no place. And that's what Councillor King has actually doing it, and I applaud all his efforts. So equality, when realized, ensures the individuals have equal access. And I think Councillor King even mentioned that education, employment, and resources, breaking down barriers that hinders their progress. When I landed in this country 45 years ago, and I think all of us as an immigrant would have the same story, did I face the racism? Did I face the discrimination? Surely I did. But at the same time, there was always an opportunity for me to overcome that. And because of somebody like Councillor King, who always was there championing the cause and putting the people into the equal sort of ring, there was an opportunity for me to rise above some of those discriminatory practice which was happening in 1980. So am I successful today because of this discrimination? No, I'm successful today because what the Councillor King and so much federal and provincial politicians are doing it to blend us together so we get an opportunity to actually go forward. But it is not merely about treating everyone the same, but recognizing and addressing the diverse needs and challenges that individuals may face. And when we recognize the diverse needs of individual, immediately we start recognizing the diverse needs of that collection of individual, which makes the community. And once we start to recognize that community's need, we start to recognize the societal need as well. So that's what the equality actually brought it. But on the other hand, what is fraternity? Fraternity emphasizes the idea of brotherlyhood and the sisterlyhood and community solidarity. So when we try to resolve that issue, it sometimes puts one community against the other community. So we need to actually cohesively look at the overall look into it. It calls for a sense of unity among individuals, transcending the community boundaries and fostering a shared sense of responsibility. Fraternity encourages collaboration, like what we are doing today, and a mutual support, which is what we are providing today, cultivating a social environment where all well-being is interconnected with the well-being of all. So it's not my well-being, but it's also your well-being, and I'm interconnected with that as well. So that together, equality and fraternity forms a powerful synergy. There's no question. We need to really have them both. Equality sets the stage for dismantling systemic barriers and fostering the environment of fairness. Fraternity then builds upon that foundation and creating bonds of understanding and collaboration among people. So this is where the most important. However, and I think Councillor knows, achieving the true equality and fraternity requires continuous effort. It does not come easy. Societal attitude, institutional structures, and ingrained prejudices must be addressed right off the bat. Legislation that ensures equal rights and opportunities plays a crucial role, but the real transformation occurs when these principles are embodied at a cultural and at an individual level. So if we all believe in it and we all practice, then and then only the collective difference is going to happen. Equality and fraternity are not an abstract ideas, but guiding principle that shapes a just and inclusive society. So one thing we all agree in terms of equality, that we should be all equal under the eyes of justice. We should be all. But there are also other questions we don't know whether we agree on. For example, equality Equality for who is an important question. And equal to whom is also a question. Should I be equal to Councillor King? And should he be equal to me? Or should I be equal to Sarah? So the fundamental definition of equal and equality to who and whom has to be addressed. And it is important in a world where diversity is a strength and unity is paramount. The harmonious coexistence of equality and fraternity paves the way for a brighter and more equitable future. So how did we get here? Well, we have been talking about equality and fraternity since 1790. If we were to look at the historical facts, it was a French Revolution. In fact, it was drafted over there in the French, where they included the 3 terms. It wasn't just fraternity and equality, it was liberté and fraternité. That's how what was counted. And when it was presented, people actually write that. It became a motto. It, in fact, became the kind of a conversation in French Revolution. But it didn't really go that far. It was only 160 years later, in 1946, that it actually, after the Third Revolution, it actually became a sort of a cause for celebrate in France itself. So it appears in the Constitution in 1946 and 1958. So what I'm saying is, this is not an easy subject. Everybody has their own opinion on it. Everybody has their stresses on it. And because in those days when the society was homogeneous, when you actually look at in 1790, when this idea of liberty, equality, and fraternity was introduced, it was a French society. They were trying to actually blend this idea together. Today, we live in multicultural and heterogeneous society. We all have a different experiences. We all have different virtues. We actually brought it together. And why is that important? Because that itself, the definition of liberty, equality, and fraternity was so vital that India in 1947, when it got its own freedom, and Dr. Ambedkar, who was actually the actual author of writing our constitution, and took those principles of what was coming from French Revolution and embedded into our in our chairman of the drafting committee. He puts into that preamble on the constitution of Canada, of course, Constitution of India. So the issue now is, for a generation of our democratic conversations and revolutionaries, these 3 words have become both a battle cry and an elusive ideals. Because if you see what is happening today, it's the same which we have seen for years. There have been years, hundreds and hundreds of years of colonization, deprivations, keeping the people behind industrial revolution. And then there is now, we are actually at the stage. And we would have thought that having had this conversation for 160 years, we would have actually moved far ahead in our conversation. But at the same time, today, we still face the world which is polarized, world which is introverted, world which is actually not looking globally. In our country, we currently have no shortage of vigorous advocates for either liberty, especially for protection of economic and property rights of the individual, or for equality, with decidedly different proponents pushing their case for a more even distribution of aggregate goods, resources, and honor. But what is missing all through, in my opinion, is a national voice to advocate the value, let alone and equality. The shared commitment, which I think we should be talking about, that should transform us from mostly prosperous assortment of private individual. I'm a successful individual, I will agree with you, but it needs to be transported from a assortment of private individuals and their successes to a nation of a public citizen and their success. And when we do that, that's when we would actually achieve an equality and fraternity of brotherlyhood and sisterhood with everybody. With that, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts.
Thank you very much, Dr. Merchant. Very, very well spoken. And yeah, that national commitment to fraternity and equality anyway, we'll deepen that discussion around having a national voice for that particular ideal. And next, we are going to hear from Dr. Jagmohan.
I see Gypsy's hand up.
Oh,
Yeah. So, yeah, this is a discussion. So I just wanted to thank Dr. Marchant for your precious time. And I wanted to mention that Sarah must have overlooked. Dr. Marchant is a member of Order of Canada. He's received the Order of Canada, as well as Dr. Jagmohan Humar, who will be coming next. So very proud of, our Indian Indian stalwarts receiving Order of Canada. So thank you so much for all your contribution. Thank you so much for your precious time.
yeah, apologies for that. The the bios are all of the bios of our esteemed
so big.
panelists.
Please Google everyone. Yeah.
Are long. So yes, I do invite everybody on the panel, if you don't know somebody and you want to find out more about them, as Gypsy said, if you Google them, you are likely to come across a number of Order of Ottawa, Order of Ontario, Order of Canada. So our next speaker is Dr. Jagmohan Humar, who is a distinguished research professor at Carleton University, who specializes in the fields of structural dynamics and earthquake engineering. He's nationally and internationally recognized for his research and publications in these fields. One thing I'd like to highlight in his substantive bio is the fact that he's been a very active member of the community. And for the last 30 years, he has served as president of the Jain Society of Ottawa and represents the society in the Capital Region Interfaith Council. Dr. Humar, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Introduction. Thank you for all that. My sincere thanks to the World Multicultural Festival and the India-Canada Consortium for giving me this privilege of participating in this panel of very distinguished colleagues. As we discuss how the lack of equality and fraternity based on race, religion, gender, and other adversely affected our civilization, promoting hatred, anger, to intolerance, strife, conflict, and violence. We recognize that Canada is not immune from these effects, and we seek ways in which we can counter them and restore peace and humanity or harmony in our own society. Let me first say about equality. And as an immigrant, I have my own experience, and I found this country to be wonderful. In spite of all of that we might lack in terms of equality, it has given us the opportunity to further ourselves, to be recognized for our merit, to be given, as Sarah just mentioned, the Order of Canada, the highest award of the, but also it has provided me the opportunity to lead in my profession and to have 3 kids who are all doctors working to serve the people of Canada. So on a positive note like that, let me also focus on something very different. I will focus on the inequality and alienation based on religion, because there are various issues that you all be talking about. I wanted to talk about religion because, as Sarah mentioned in my introduction, I serve in the Capital Region Interfaith Council. I'm also the president of Jain Society of Ottawa Carleton. So in my role as a religious practitioner, I must be aware of what this lack of fraternity among religions has done to the world. All religions of the world have preached the message of understanding, tolerance, and love. And yet the history of our civilization is replete with instances when the perverting influences of religious passions and dogma have fanned the fires of bigotry, intolerance, bloodshed, and war. To believe that such can be true, let me cite some instances from the history of civilization. It is important to learn about them, know about them, so that we do not continue to make that mistake that we still are doing. So Let me cite some instances from the 11th century, the Middle Ages. And you might say that, oh, they were old civilization, they were barbaric in nature, and they had little knowledge. That's not true. It continues today, continues even with greater fervor, probably. So the 11th century saw the consecration of II launched his appeal for a crusade against the new civilization of Islam. As a result of his appeal, hordes of people walked across to take an arduous journey through Asia Minor, Syria, Palestine, and the Holy Land of Jerusalem, killing or forcibly baptizing all Muslims and Jews who came in their way. The victories then arrived at the Holy Land of Jerusalem, and they pillaged and plundered the city, killing people, men and women and children. However, these victories were short-lived, as the rising power of the civilization of Islam soon overcame them, took back Jerusalem, and advanced far into Europe. In fact, this perpetual violence that continued on the 11th century is estimated to have killed about 1.7 million people, men and women and children. Violence and bloodshed have also been incited by divisions within a faith. The division among Christians between Catholics and Protestants gave rise to a seemingly endless conflict in Ireland. And in the 25 years 1960 onwards, violence numbed the Irish society. The human tragedy mounted and the death mounted. The Irish conflict has been called a tragedy in endless act. But even more tragic was the conflict between Iran and Iraq. The conflict that lasted for about 8 to 10 years and still simmers from time to time in the Middle East, derived its intensity and its fierceness from the great historic divide in the civilization of Islam, the schism between Sunnis and Shias. The human cost of the conflict was staggering. Countless lives were lost, and children barely in their teens donned the battle garb and sacrificed themselves on the battlefield. Religious passions and hatred also intensified the conflict between Hindus and Muslims during the partition of India, when violence and bloodshed resulted in the killing of large numbers, displacement of many families, and widespread destruction. So those were some instances from war and conflict and bloodshed which arise from religion. Now, it's true that not everything arose because of religion, but the religious beliefs and the passions that were aroused by the religion made them more fierce, more intractable, parties more intransigent, less willing to compromise. The perverting influence of religious passion still stalks our society. And among the root causes of that incite intolerance, anger, and hate are lack of equality and fraternity. And I'll focus more on fraternity in my remarks from that onward, because as I said, equality is an issue, but there is even fraternity or love for each other. As one scholar once said, do not introduce me to that person. I want to continue to hate him. And how can I hate him if I came to know him? So my own experience with the role of interfaith dialogue and free exchange of ideas convinces me that fraternity promotes understanding, tolerance, and love. I am a member of the Capital Region Interfaith Council, a group of faith leaders and representatives of the Capital Region. A large number of faiths are represented on the council, including Christianity and its various sects, Hindu, Islam, Buddhist, Jain, Indigenous people, and others. Members of the council meet regularly once a month to share the tenets of their own faith, engage in interfaith dialogue, offer prayers from their faith, and build friendship. Time to time, we get together to sing and to dance and share each other's social fabric. I discovered that over this time that I have with the Capital Region Interfaith Council, it's almost 30 years that I have been there, I have found that there's so much common in the tenets of different faiths, and that they all promote brotherhood, love, and understanding and tolerance if we come to know them, if we become friends with them, if you have fraternity with them. Myself, I represent the Jain faith on the council. Jainism is its ancient faith, the earliest signs of whose existence can be found in the remains of the 5,000-year-old Indus Valley civilization. The excavations in the cities like Mohenjo-daro and Harappa have revealed this was a very developed civilization some 5,000 years ago. Some 2,006 years ago, that is 590 in the BC or so, one of the prophets of the religion called Mahavir revived the faith and gave it a sound philosophical basis. I need to talk in like 2 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes about the Jain faith to lay the groundwork about what the faith represents and to see how we can learn from it. The Jain faith is founded on its 3 central pillars. They are Ahimsa, Aparigraha, and Anekan, all starting with A, which means non-violence, modest living, and non-absolutism or pluralism. Of these, Ahimsa and Anekan are central to the establishment of peace and harmony. Ahimsa is the defining concept of Jainism. According to the Jain tradition, there is a soul in every living being, be it human, animal, bird, or insect. And its perfect state, the soul remains attached. In its imperfect state, the soul remains attached to the body because our passions of anger, ego, then when we renounce these passions, the soul gets liberated and becomes divine. So in essence, there is a soul in every living being, and the true nature of the soul is divine. From this profound logic comes out the concept of ahimsa or non-violence, love. Okay. So from this profound logic, the concept of universal love and oneness of life emerges. Love, non-violence being the natural outcome. In simple terms, it means that there is a reverence for life in every form and a resolve not to hurt, injure, subjugate, enslave, torture, or kill another living being. This is in brief what ahimsa or non-violence means. Now, if ahimsa is the Jainism's greatest contribution to human action, Anekan or pluralism is its most noble contribution to human thought. According to this concept, no one has a monopoly on the truth. One's definition of truth is based on its own experience, observation, and perception. There may be other ideas and other viewpoints that may be valid, and the whole truth may sometimes be the synthesis of these individual. And there's a beautiful parable that I want to cite, take a minute more, and that's about an elephant and 6 visually impaired persons who touched the elephant. One who touched the side said it was a wall. Who touched the leg, it was like the trunk of a tree. One who touched the rope, the tail said it was rope. One who touched the tusk said it was spear, and so on. They had 6 different observations. They started to fight with each other until somebody who could see passed by and said, "Why are you fighting? Each one of is correct, true, but in your own experience, in your own judgment. And the truth is a synthesis of all of your individual experiences. Why fight amongst each other? Know each other." Now, different faith members have made similar presentations on the council, just as I did for the Jain faith, and outlining the philosophies of their and principles of their faith. Together, we also share our faith viewpoints on some modern topics related to our society here. And I found there's so much common between the different faiths in their tenets, in their beliefs, in what they think about. It also gave me the opportunity to talk from time to time at the grade 12 high school, where they have a religious, competitive religion class in their course, and to speak about the Jain philosophy, as others do about the other philosophy. I also talked at congregations of other churches and so on. Finally, in our own times, Mahatma Gandhi, you may know, who fought for the independence of India through non-violent protests, has shown how peaceful means without leaving any bitterness between the parties involved. Gandhi was deeply influenced by the Jain principles of Ahimsa and Anekan. Some of us in Ottawa thought to remember Gandhi and to promote his shared principle through education would be an effective way of promoting peace and humanity. To that end, we established in Ottawa an organization named Mahatma Gandhi Peace Council, of which I was the founding principal. The council was able to obtain a statue of a full life-size statue of Gandhi, and I was joined by Dr. Pradeep Merchant in being able to install it on the campus of Carleton University. Still stands there. Also, we endowed an annual lecture at Carleton University on peace and harmony. For the last 12 years, this annual lecture has been continuously offered. And what we do in this lecture is talk about this fraternity, talk about this equality, talk about peace, I talk about harmony and friendship. The lecture has been offered each year, as I said, and now more recently, the Mahatma Gandhi Peace Council has started a joint course jointly between Carleton University, University of Ottawa, and St. Paul University. The name of the course is Peace, Nonviolence, and Conflict Resolution. And our idea is to spread the word through this non-credit course, which is open to everyone. Later on, when the opportunity arises, if there is interest, I will share a link to how anyone can take that course. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, and it's a pleasure to see all of my colleagues here, very distinguished colleagues, and I look forward to hearing to them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kumar, not just for your very eye-opening presentation, but also for the work you do with the Interfaith Council. People underestimate just the wealth of knowledge that our faith traditions are and how they can fundamentally provide solutions to some of these problems that we currently are having. Contrary to popular belief, faith does not have to divide. Basic tenets of our faith can bring us together. Next, we have Noor Qadri. Noor El Qadri is a professor of strategic management, governance and ethics, innovation and artificial intelligence. He's an expert on Canadian politics with a lot of knowledge of various political parties' policies, organizational structures, and hierarchies. He's a member of the Experts on Call at the University of Ottawa. He's a regular commentator on various radio, TV, and other media outlets on matters Canadian and international politics, business, and technology. From 2017 to 2022, he served as the president of the Canadian Arab Federation, an umbrella organization representing Arab Canadians all across Canada. And I should also mention that he ran for mayor of Ottawa in 2022 and advanced the debate on many pressing issues. Mr. El Qadri.
Thank you very much, Master of Ceremonies, Sarah Onyango, Chief McGregor, the organizers, Gypsy and Dr. Jamal, my brothers and sisters in fraternity, good afternoon. It is always wrong to give the microphone to academics, and I feel going after my colleagues and my friends, Dr. Marchant and Dr. Omar, that sometimes we take the time, but I'll try to be short as much as I can. Let me first start with a few confessions before I came in here, that I got a lot of pressure to boycott this call on this talk. And I believe it is absolutely very important to participate in debates, in panels, bring ideas forward. Yes, we would like to have and advance harmony and equality and fraternity along the lines. But I want to echo what my friend Ralston King have advocated for and pushed for all along in his inclusion and diversity elements, and what Professor Marchant addressed as tangentially, specifically on equality and fraternity, that those ideas of equality and fraternity, they ring hollow if we don't build them on aspects of liberty and, most importantly, justice. And in situations of injustice, we should be brave enough to call a spade a spade. Archbishop Desmond Tutu spoke about this, that in situations of injustice, you should not be staying silent. You should not be taking that element of saying, okay, well, I'm equidistant from each and everyone, because the moment you stay silent in these situations of chosen the side of the oppressor. And I fear that we should never do that in Canada. Equality sounds a very nice name when we talk about it. Okay, I'm going to talk about Yasser Naqvi. He's not here. I'm much taller than Yasser Naqvi. So if you put us behind a wall of 7 feet and you tell us, look behind that wall, we cannot see, both of us. But if you give us each a step of 7 inches and we go on top of it, I will be able to see. He will not be able to see. And that is equality. We're on equal footing. We're given the same tool to step on, but that's not justice. Justice is to elevate everybody so that we all can see behind that wall. And there are lots of situations that I'm going to call about in Canada here. And when we talk about justice, it's got no borders, just like climate change. When carbon dioxide goes into the air, it doesn't matter whether it's coming from China or the United States or Canada. It is up in the air and it's affecting humanity and it's affecting all of us. And the same thing when it comes to elements of justice. Professor Homar is an expert on earthquakes. Last year, there was an earthquake that hit northern Syria and the eastern part of Turkey. It was devastating. There was huge humanitarian issues in Canada, and under the name of humanity and support, look at basic things. You go to a bank and they would allow you and ask you, can you contribute $2 to the people that were hit in the earthquake in Turkey? If you ask, can we do the same thing for somebody in Syria? So sorry, we cannot do that because there are sanctions against that country. Where's the humanity in that? Okay. Where's equality in that? It's the same earthquake, it's the same natural disaster, it's the same poor people. The fact that there was a border between them, some people identified as Turks, others identified as Syrians, they were not treated equally in justice. Okay. And in Canada, we see no explanations on that. As an academic now, I look at this and see, well, there is a huge war that is raging on in Ukraine and Russia. And Canada has opened its door to a lot of Ukrainians to come to Canada. And we are an immigrant-based country, and I'm a big proponent of immigration and support for people in tough and great work in a lot of situations, whether it is during the Vietnam War or even before that, after the Second World War. We've done it in situations in the war in Afghanistan. We've had projects from Lebanon, from Somalia, from all places around the world. And we've done extremely well when it comes to that. You go to universities now, there are funds for academics and graduate students that were created after the Ukraine war. And they were mostly identified as these are for people that are coming from situations that are unfortunate, to help these people. There is a similar situation that is happening in Gaza now. 12 universities have been completely destroyed in Gaza. Academics have been targeted. More than 200 academics have been killed. You've got a lot of graduate students, a lot of academics that probably would come, and Canada is gonna welcome them. You go to all universities, and we've been talking about that. Can we access that fund that was created for people that are coming from places that have gone through risk and that are coming from unfortunate situations? And you have to make tough cases, and they'll tell you, no, those are for Ukraine. And that reminded me of a former member of parliament. She's a woman of Italian origin. When the government of Canada was trying to push towards the equality of women and give special projects for funds, and she was the head of an Italian association, she told me that I went to apply, and I was speaking to another member of parliament, and she was not a member of parliament back then. And she was pushed away that, okay, this fund is, yes, we want to give equality to women, but we're gonna prioritize, it's for white women. It's not for you. It was as blunt as that. Of course, that was 40 years ago. Those things resonate these days when we come and we talk about equality. When I was president of the Canadian Arab Federation, I worked with a group in Ontario that was called the Colors of Poverty. It was the Canadian Arab Federation, it was the Assembly of First Nations, it was the African Canadian Clinic, it was the Chinese Canadian Clinic, it was the National Council of Canadian Muslims. It was groups that we found common denominator among us, and we were high on the levels of poverty. And suddenly when we started to look at things, we said, we're equal on elements of unemployment, and we're equal on elements of poverty, and we're equal on bad things, like in terms of being overly represented in prisons, in terms of targeting Black and Arab men and First Nations more than others. The rise of racism, especially we have seen it during the pandemic, against Canadians of Asian origin. When we've seen people like Mr. Trump come in and say, okay, well, this is the Chinese virus, and in Canada, until today, we talk about those aspects of equality. We are not equal. And in order to elevate, we need to push through that fight. What Professor Marchand and Professor Omar spoke about, yes, we've gone through a lot of challenges at all levels. And immigrants face those challenges to get to that equality more than others. And there are historic notions of this that we need to keep pushing so that the next generation will not face those challenges again. I happen to be somebody who likes to pick up fights, and I faced them. And I have faced racism in almost every job that I was on. And I fought for a lot of things to get in many places. In my profession as an engineer, as a professor in multiple universities in Canada, what everybody gets straightforward, I have to fight for it. And make the cases all the time in order to get to that next level. And that shouldn't be the situation. I'll share with you another example. I met with a former Minister of Defense. He's a top lawyer. His name is Jean-Jacques Blais. And it was 2007. I was running for nomination with the Liberal Party of Canada back then. And he was trying to help me get the green light as part of a green light committee. And he was the head of the green light committee. And we were sitting in his office. It was the 25th anniversary that day of the Charter of Rights. And it was hanging in his office. And he was telling me about it, that he was one of the authors, and it was a proud moment for him. And I told him it's unfortunate that 25 years after the Charter of Rights, as a Canadian citizen, I'm fighting for basic rights within a party that have pushed that. And he told me, my son, I want to tell you one thing. In 1971, I ran 4 nominations with the Liberal Party. And I had to go through a tough fight in order to be approved. And there was a lot of hurdles against me because I was a French Canadian. And it was mostly English Canadians that were trying to suppress me. And we've gone through this for a long period of time, and now French Canadians are mainstream. You probably have to go through this for a generation. And after that generation, probably your kids are not going to go through it. But don't give up. Those were statements from a wise man. And what I would say is that under the name of fraternity, of equality and equality, we need to fight the tough fight and call any injustice that is out, especially in Canada. We need to ask for freedom, and that's not going to be complete unless everybody is free around the world. And I would be remiss if I would not call that, and among each and every one of you, that the injustice that the people of Gaza are facing these days, we need to call a spade and push for our government in order to make sure that everybody around the world deserves the justice that they are looking for. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. El Kadri, and thank you for the reminder about the Canadian Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms, which should actually be practiced concretely on a daily basis for all communities, regardless of their ethnic or national origin. Thank you very, very much for that. And next,
I have something to say. Sorry,
Pardon?
Sarah. So Helen Tang just requested, can she speak because she has an emergency.
Okay.
She has to go.
So we'll, okay.
Dr. Jamal, can you allow Helen to speak before you?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
We'll move on to Dr. Helen Tang, who
And
received
then
her
Jamal, then Dr. Jamal. Yes.
So Dr. Helen Tang received her doctorate in computer engineering from Carleton University in 2005, and from 1999 to 2020, she worked in several research and development organizations in Canada and the US. And after 20 plus years of working in the scientific and engineering fields, she changed her field completely. She decided to pursue her passion for helping people build wealth through real estate. So she founded HT Real Estate 2020, and she's had a lot of success with that, helping over 200 families with their real estate transactions every year. And her real estate company is ranked top 1% in Ottawa in both volume and units sold, and top 5 teams in KW Canada. Is that Keller Williams Canada? Dr. Tang.
Okay, thank you so much, and thanks, Dr. Jamal. Let me speak first. Yes, so thank you so much, Gypsy, for inviting me to be on this panel, and then I heard all these distinguished guests speak before me, and I think we are all unique. We come from with different cultural background, different religion, but we share something more in common. Like I think more things make us the same rather than apart. So I want to speak from the angle that embracing diversity and equity for a stronger society. On March 8th, just the International Women's Day, I gave a speech on global unity at the International Women's Day on the Hill event. Although we are all unique individuals, each with our own culture, dreams, and challenges, we are also all interconnected and interdependent. I think many of the speakers before me mentioned that. So let's realize, if we realize in this concept together, we can achieve far more than we could ever accomplish alone. In a world filled with differences, it's imperative that we recognize diversity as our greatest asset and equity as our guiding principle. Today, I want to emphasize why embracing diversity and promoting equity isn't just a moral imperative, but a strategic advantage for all of us as a society. You see, diversity is more than just a buzzword. It's the essence of humanity. We all come in different shapes and sizes. And then the difference in races, ethnicity, gender, and sexual orientation, religion, and abilities enrich our communities and workplaces. They bring forth a multitude of perspectives, ideas, and experiences that fuel innovation, creativity, and progress. When we embrace diversity, we open ourselves to new ways of thinking and problem solving, ultimately leading to better outcome in all aspects of life. Like being on this panel itself, is we get to know people from different culture, and Gypsy is really the catalyst, bringing all different community together. I would never imagine that sitting in such multicultural panel and then get to know all of you and learn from all of you. Thank you again. But without equity, the full potential of diversity remains untapped. Equity ensures fairness and justice by acknowledging and addressing the systematic barriers that hinder certain groups from fully participating and thriving in society. It's about creating equal opportunities for everyone, regardless of their background, so that each individual can reach their highest potential. When we prioritize equity, we not only uplift the marginalized communities, but also strengthen the fabric of our society as a whole. Studies have considerably shown that more equitable societies experience higher levels of economic growth, social cohesion, and overall well-being. By leveling the playing field, I think one of the speakers mentioned that when people can see together, see more views if we level the playing field, right? We unlock the talents and the contributions of all members of society, leading to greater prosperity and harmony for everyone. Even more, that embracing diversity and equity fosters empathy, understanding, and respect among individuals and across communities. Like panels or events like this help us under each other's viewpoint. That way we have more empathy and understanding, and cultivate a culture of inclusivity where everyone feels valued and empowered to participate fully in society. This is what exactly this panel are doing. Thank you. In such an environment, prejudice and discrimination wither away, making room for unity and collaboration towards common goals. So let us commit ourselves to champion diversity and equity in all aspects of our lives. Let us celebrate our differences and strive for a society where every person, regardless who they are or where they come from, has an equal opportunity to succeed and thrive. Remember, I want to emphasize again, diversity is our strength and equity is good for all of us as a society. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tang, and thank you for underscoring just how much diversity is a necessary and worthwhile investment. It is an investment. It's an investment in the social cohesion of society. And thank you for all that you do for so many of our families in the National Capital Region.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I have to leave soon. Thank you.
Thanks. So now we'll have Dr. Jamal Al-Sharif, who is the founder and president of Humans for Peace Institution. Dr. Al-Sharif?
Being here, we've heard very good and nice words from everybody, but today here I'm address a deeply troubling issue that actually affecting our society and threaten the fabric of our communities, which is racism. But more specifically, I would like to shine on the reason and the powerful rules that media and politics plays in promoting these problems. Racism actually, in its various forms, a real cancer that eats away of the core of our communities. It's poisoning by ignorance, fear, and divisions. And unfortunately, both media and politics have often played a role in fueling this toxic narrative. Let's start with media. In today's digital era, we are having information spread like wildfire across the social media. And the news outlet also trying to put their issues there. But however, the media holds tremendous power in shaping the public perceptions and influencing others' attitudes. However, too often we see media outlet protruding some stereotypes against communities and racial and ethnic groups. It's only actually serve and deepen the racism in our societies. Similarly, politics also plays a role in either challenging or reinforcing the racial inequality. Politicians are actually supposed to be leaders in our communities who are representing our values and ideas. They're supposed to represent and promote unity, equality, justice for all. However, we've seen too many instances where politicians explored racial divisions for their own gains, using fear, using tactics to divide people, to put certain communities and groups in under the attack just for their political agendas. Whether it's discriminatory by politicians or by media, we know that in Canada we still have views. I know Dr. Noor, he spoke many times about the systemic racism within our systems, within our institutions, finding jobs, trying to be promoted. It's not easy, and the systematic racism is there, and we have to fight it. So we have to acknowledge this. We have to work together to stop this fear and to further strengthen our understanding of each other's. Despite this troublings happening by politicians and media, we still have hope. We did not lose the hope. I will not lose the hope. We have the power to demand better form of media outlets and hold them accountable for fear and unequal reporting. We have the power to vote for politicians who prioritize unity and equality over division and discrimination. And the most important, we have the power to educate ourselves, our communities, and others to challenge the stereotypes and to build bridges to understand understanding and empathy across the racial division. Together, we can work toward a future where racism is eradicated, where diversity is celebrated, and where every person, regardless of his race, ethnicity, background, religion, is treated with dignity, respect, and equality. I would like to end with a quote and to remember that people's power is stronger than people in power. Miigwech.
Wow, that's very, very powerful, Dr. Al-Sharif. And I agree with you, even though I work in the media sector and have for over 20 years, that yeah, a lot of the fear and the misunderstanding and the lack of empathy, etc., is fueled very, very often by the way the media treats certain communities, faiths, etc., and seeks to, elevate some, diminish others. So thank you for that. And I hope people are hearing that call to action of demanding better, right? If you don't demand better, you don't get better. Thank you very much for that. Next, we have Jody Green has been working in the field of identity and affiliation in the Jewish community for 20 years. And in her current role at the Jewish Federation of Ottawa, she is the communications and advocacy specialist with a focus on allyship with individuals and organizations outside the Jewish community. Jody, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to Gypsy, the World's Multicultural Festival Committee, Sarah, my esteemed fellow panelists, for having me here today. I was thrilled to have been asked to talk about equality and equity in our community. In my job at the Jewish Federation of Ottawa, I meet with people from many different faiths, cultures, and backgrounds to learn from them. We talk over a cup of coffee and explore what unites us rather than divides. We discuss topics like, what does it mean to live in a diverse Canadian society? And what are the challenges that your community is facing right now? And how can I help? Through our mutual learning, we are able to build bridges, increase understanding, and work towards a world with less hate and more collaboration. As a proud member of the Jewish community, I work to make life better for my community and to reduce anti-Semitism in all its forms and support other groups as they aim to reduce discrimination and hate for their communities. I truly believe in the transformative power of unity in education. During this time of high anti-Semitism, we look to the advocacy of allies and partners to create proactive engagement and collaboration. We cannot solve this problem alone. We also, unfortunately, have to look to enhance security measures and regular police presence at our places of worship and community spaces because we must safeguard our children and those engaged in the work of Jewish community. So what would be the steps to better understanding? There are 3. 1, have an open mind. Accept that you may have preconceived ideas about a particular group or culture that are not fully informed or correct. Hate always originates from outside the community and will not be solved without support and advocacy of others outside the given community. However, the outsider must be knowledgeable about the issues of importance and the values for the community on whose behalf they will advocate. To dispel hatred, communities need help. They need support from allies outside their sphere, and to become a true ally, people must be willing to consider the point of view of the marginalized group. I meet with people every day of the week and we talk about our needs. We learn about each other's faith practices, beliefs, and ideologies. And what I have seen is that there is such power in these conversations. We educate each other and are better for it. Currently, my community is scared and cautious, but I remain optimistic that there is a stronger desire for peace and friendship than there is for hate. I'd like to tell a story. My son has a friend who comes from another cultural background. Several months ago, this friend was repeating anti-Semitic comments at school and sharing them, argue about the statements or attack the validity or veracity of what he was saying. It was suggested that they both sit down with an administrator to talk. They did, and the friend came to understand how hate hurts and how the opinions of others should not shadow your view of the person sitting before you. They have continued their friendship, and I believe they have each grown for the encounter. Step 2, listen and learn. Be prepared to let go of preconceived notions and make room for new ideas. The big piece to this puzzle is education. Vet your sources. I have teens. I know the power of their friends, of Instagram, Discord, Snapchat, TikTok, and YouTube. They often come to me with outrageous videos, and when we dig just beneath the surface, we see that these are doctored videos. Social media is full of misinformation. Check your sources. Learn the history. Develop a relationship with someone from the community in question and see if you can ask the hard questions. Ask the things you're embarrassed you don't already know and learn from each other. I love to be asked the hard questions. It means that you're thinking, that you care, that you want to learn. I too have grown so much in my work by listening. I've been humbled by people doing similar work, but doing it louder and more publicly. I love to talk, but it's when we listen that we truly grow. And step 3, be prepared to accept. We must accept that sometimes the truth is not what we wish it to be, but if it's the truth, then we must accept it. As Sherlock Holmes says, when we have eliminated the impossible, whatever is left, no matter how improbable, must be the truth. Moving from hate to tolerance to acceptance means that you are ready to let go of those preconceived notions. Once you have educated yourself, you must be ready to move forward with new ideas and opinions. You have heard about the pain and hurt that has been caused by hate and are ready to release your own impressions to make way for new and more meaningful ideas. Once we can accept the truth, then we become true allies and partners with other communities for change. Through proactive engagement and collaboration, we can safeguard Ottawa's community's well-being and contribute meaningfully to a shared vision of equality, ensuring a secure and inclusive future for generations to come. Thank you, everyone.
Wow, thank you so much, Jody, for that strong emphasis on allyship, true and effective allyship as moving from hate to tolerance to acceptance. And the acceptance part is that hard part that many of us can't seem to sort of get to from the tolerance. Thank you so much for that. Next, we are going to hear from Dr. Gautam Ghosh, who is the CEO of an upper chamber international law firm. He's an advocate, author, human rights activist, and the Canada Consortium. He's also the chief advisor, SAARC, Human Rights International Election Observer. Dr. Ghosh.
Namaskar, thank you. Thank you, Sarah, for inviting me to speak on this. Right now, before I start, I have to, acknowledge the wonderful and exhaustive explanation Pradeep Marchand has given on the concept itself. His in-depth speech, which has, given a very clear idea about the subject matter. The most important, he has spoken at length on many things. But one thing which I found is quite interesting is his concept of building from an individual citizenship to public citizenship. It's a beautiful concept, which is very important. If we discuss, if we try to agenda of this issue of equality and diversity. I have to also acknowledge the wonderful speech with Jagmohan, whom he has presented here. He himself being a Jain, he has appreciated as well as made a very balanced approach towards the religion of other while making his approach today here. And especially I have to thank Noor Kadri for his straightforward, message that we have to stand tall and fight for our rights. That's very correct. In simple words, we have to. I am just not going more into the speeches because I have my own speech. I have to say something for me. There's another important thing which Dr. Helen Tang has spoken about is investing on diversity. That's a very key word which we should keep in our mind, that we invest on diversity. Coming to Dr. Jamal, he has tried to put up before us the role of the media in showing in putting before us the issues which are coming on diversity and equality, and which may cause repercussions in the near future, as well as he has also spoken about the need of the hour is to build bridges between the communities. Jody Green, stepwise analysis and approach, I appreciate that. It's quite innovative. Saying so, now I have to come to the topic itself. Now, we understand that however fragmented the world, however intense the national rivalries, it's undisputed fact that today to sustain and grow in a community, greater community, which is the state, we are becoming each day more interdependent with each other. Today, we must acknowledge that tolerance, pluralistic tradition, mutual respect, and diversity of religions and beliefs promote human fraternity. Thus, it is imperative that we encourage activities aimed at promoting interreligious and intercultural dialogues in order to enhance peace and social stability, respect for diversity and mutual respect, and to create the global level and also at the regional, national, and local levels an environment conducive to peace and mutual understanding. This peace and mutual understanding is most important for development of any society. Without peace and mutual understanding and mutual respect, we cannot understand how to create equality and how to promote fraternity. Now, what is equality and what is fraternity? The panel speakers have explained it at length, so I need not just go into all those explanations. But equality is all about ensuring that everybody has equal opportunity at home, work, and in society, and each person is not treated differently or discriminated against because of their characteristics. At the core of equality means fairness. We must ensure individuals or groups or individuals are treated less favorably because of their protective characteristics, which means that if there is a protective characteristics of a group of individuals, they should not be treated differently. They should be treated equally. Now, again, this has been said more or less by Pradeep Marchand in his speech, that what it means that I cannot be equal with my own work with Pradeepji. He has made an explanation of this. Now, coming to fraternity. Now, before I come to fraternity, I have to quote what the Chief Justice of Canadian Supreme Court has said once in a case which is referred as R versus Oakes in 1986. Where the Chief Justice himself has stated that realization of collective goals is of fundamental importance. Those collective goals, fundamental values, were described by the Chief Justice as being respect for the inherent dignity of human person, commitment to social justice and equality, accommodation of a wide variety of beliefs, respect for cultural and group identity, and faith in social and political institutions which enhance the participation of individuals and groups in a society, quote and unquote. Means that again, the same thing, I have to repeat what Pradeepji has said, that fraternity, in simple words, it's brotherhood and sisterhood, which Pradeepji has said. So we have to respect, each and every one, irrespective of caste, creed, religion, color, sex, anything. Because there has to be a collective cohesion. That's what is needed for building a society, for building a nation. True fraternity requires community structures, social relations in such a way that its members regard each other as equals, passion, and are bounded by effective ties and have disposition to cooperate and help each other. The situation in Canada is passing through difficult times, whereas essence of equality and fraternity is fast losing its intrinsic value. Although Canada has proactive legislation, well, I just missed our Ralston King. Ralston spoke about all legislative things in those laws and there. So yes, there are many laws, proactive legislation, but they are not, improperly used. That's the most, irony. That's the irony of today. Yes, according to a 2024 report of Statistics Canada, the most common type of discrimination experienced by visible minorities in Canada since the beginning of COVID-19 pandemic was discrimination based on race or color. 21.5% of women belonging to a visible minority group reported having faced such a situation compared to 18.3% of men. Well, this is a reported discrimination. Apart from this, there is unreported discrimination. We know about discrimination against non-visible minority, the Aboriginal groups. But what about those discrimination which is there within the minorities? The saddest part of the story is the dreaded disease of discrimination is everywhere in our state. Now it's time to think how to make it. The only way in which we can, build fraternity and unity is through cherishing compassion, craving cohesion, and caring coexistence for all as human beings. Thank you. Namaskar once again.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ghosh. And it's true, we have lots of laws, but applying them equally with empathy and equity is the problem, as you highlighted.
Yeah.
Next, we have Mr. Wahid Khan, who is the president.
Jody, Sarah.
Yes.
This is Dr. Merchant. I do have to leave at 5. I wonder if I could, because I know I was only booked for 3 to 5, and then I have another appointment. Can I say a few words and then I could step out, if you don't mind?
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Listen, Jody, you came to my mind right away because you actually did put together something as a step pattern in terms of addressing this, and that's unique. But let me talk about it. I think we talk about this pandemic and how things actually change, but I do believe the globalization or equalization of the population, how we saw each other as a global village, was actually happening in early 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s. So we were working very hard. We had the world leadership, which was together. I do think that what changed was the whole narrative was at 9/11. And let me actually reflect on it. And I think my good friend Jagji will actually agree with me. It was Mahatma Gandhi that once said that eye for eye will only leave everybody blind. So let's just think about it. And I want to leave this reflection to you, all of you. Had we not attacked Iraq, we would have been at a different state of affairs today. We are actually seeing the repercussion of a mighty power making a decision on a wrong intel to do something about somebody who could not actually defend themselves. So what I think is very important is when we are in the position of might, so we all are well established and all this stuff, it is actually incumbent upon us to make sure that we lift that low and forgotten minority who actually is suffering from this discrimination and racism. So it is very important to realize that if you have a power, you have even more responsibility to reflect and react, and not just react simply because that's a contextual narrative which has gone on, which has actually fomented the hatred forever. And Dr. Al-Sharif, it is not just our current platform. The reason why there is so much amount of hatred in the world is because of so much amount of narratives over the generation has actually pitched one against other. While at the same time, we all claim that all religions want us to be equal. At the same time, the eventual conclusion of that French Revolution in the Second Revolution was, it was religious fraternity. And that's where actually it all landed. And eventually the acceptance after the Third Revolution in 1946 wasn't as much as equality, fraternity, and liberté. It was actually religious fraternity which convinced the French Revolution and French constitutional maker to actually use that terminology. So I leave you with these thoughts that there is important responsibility, all of us who actually have a degree of power or success our minority or the people who actually need the need. So thank you again for inviting Sarah. Thank you again. I do have to leave. And Jody, well done.
Thank you very much, Dr. Merchant, for that. Yes, the power dynamic and the responsibility of the powerful in advocating for the less powerful and contributing substantively to the peace that we all want. And now we're going to hear from Mr. Wahid Khan, president of the Community of Federal Visible Minorities, an independent network that provides a platform to visible minorities in the federal public service to discuss their priorities, to share information and advocate on their behalf. He has a passion for public service based on social justice and equity to serve all Canadians, regardless of their ethnic origins, gender, background, and any other identities. Mr. Khan.
Thank you very much. I would like to take this opportunity to say that I'm speaking to you from the Indigenous Algonquin Nation territories, unceded, unsurrendered, and I'm very pleased to be living in this area and thanking those who came much before us, taking care of this beautiful land. I'm privileged. I would also like to thank Dr. Ghosh and Mrs. Ghosh, both of them, for organizing this very important discussion. The panelists that spoke before me was amazing, and I'm going to be looking forward to listening to all of them, even though I'm on a travel status, I have to go to a meeting. But I think that what I heard from our colleagues was very, very illuminating. Amazing. I'm hoping that one day we would be together in person, so we could actually shake hands, see each other in person. It's great. Thank you so much. The subject, of course, is extremely important and very relevant, fraternity and equality. My belief is that if we are brothers and sisters, if we have a fraternity, that means we are equal. And that means that there is justice, we have justice amongst us. Canada is a great country. I came to Canada by choice, and it's a great country. It's a great country not because how much we have come, how far we have traveled so far, but how much committed we are to travel together much further. And we do need to go a lot further. I think there's a general agreement. All Canadians know that we have to go further. We have some background or some history that tells us that some of the things we did as a nation were something that we regret. We have seen the government leaders offer apologies to a number of people, including whether it's the Chinese that used their blood and sweat to build this country, the Japanese or the people from India, and of course, more than anybody else, the Black people and the Indigenous people, for sure. We still don't have a system where we can say, yeah, we are proud of where we are. We have a fraternity and we have equality, but it's a noble goal to aim for. My job is as a representative of the Community of Federal Visible Minorities, but also as a board member of the Professional Institute of the Public Service of Canada, representing the 70,000 public servants and members. I can tell you my job is to give people hope that things are going to get better. There is more in common that we can focus on and we can make things better than there is that would divide us. There will always be a tendency for things to happen, whether inside our country or internationally somewhere else, that will divide us. Our biggest challenge is how do we focus on the commonality that we have. And when there are difficulties, we don't shy away from difficult conversations. We are able to talk about it, and we are able to talk about it in a constructive way. My belief is in collaboration. I think if we collaborate, we talk in a constructive way, no matter how difficult the subject is, we are able to make a difference. So these days, I will be remiss if I do not mention how much it hurts me when I hear the news from our colleagues that I talk to them every day. I speak with people, and they are concerned about the 1,500 or something close to deaths of Israelis, and for over 31,000 Palestinians. One life loss is too much. It does hurt me, and I think it's of course this is a failure of the international community that cannot resolve conflicts amongst nations, and that is not able to take effective action. That when things do blow up, there's a timely action to stop it from further damage. Unfortunately, that the international community has failed, and we are all suffering, or we are hurt by what is happening. I would also like to mention a couple of things that I think may be a bit of repetition because other colleagues have mentioned it in some form or another, but I'm going to be direct. In Canada, we have made a long way. We have great laws and the charter in itself, because there is no law or the charter. It gives full equal rights. So there is no law like some other jurisdiction or even us in the past had, where the laws themselves are discriminatory and they discriminate based on color, religion, all that. We don't have that. But what we do need to do is take the next step. The next step is the accountability. We still have diffused accountabilities, and we don't have concrete actions. So we talk about things, but I'll give you a couple of examples where I feel there is a need for concrete action and for accountability. So, for example, you will see that our laws guarantee that not only we have the equality of the two official languages, but we also have the equality of the indigenous languages in this country. But you will find that the mechanisms to address the official languages is totally different. It has teeth, whereas the accountability for the indigenous languages is totally diffuse. There is no accountability. There are no strong mechanisms in place. And that's why we don't see equality. We intend to have equality, but we don't have equality. The other example I give you is the Employment Equity Act that we have. We all know we have an act, and it's a great act. It aims for the right things to do. Of course, it needs to be reviewed and updated. It has not been reviewed for 10 years or so. Who has the accountability for that? But on top of that, I think that the biggest accountability challenge is that the Employment Equity Act has not been properly implemented, and that's why it has not achieved its objectives. So we do need to talk about these things. In my view, the cornerstone for our discussion is respect, so that we respect each other. We may have different views, of course. It's a multicultural country, and it's all good when you have a diversity of views, because that way we can see each other's point of view and make a holistic picture of what really it is that we are talking about and what is the action that we need to take. So if I can leave a few words with you, it is respect, it is the diversity of views and people, and it is the accountability and concrete actions. These are, to me, the cornerstone of some of those actions that we need to take in order to achieve a true fraternity and equality. That's where we need to go, and my sense is that if we collaborate, we work together, we are constructive, there's no challenge that we cannot overcome working together. It is taking longer, of course. I have to recognize that. Many people will say, oh, we've been waiting too long. That is true. We have all been waiting too long. But I think that the wait will be over. We will make progress. We will be able to move forward and in a manner that we say, yeah, we're all equal people. We all have different, I know we speak sometimes about the different level of support that we need, because, you know, that is the essence of justice and equality. If somebody needs more support, you give them that extra support to bring everything together. But let's not forget that in Canada, particularly amongst the diversity, the visible minorities, the immigrants, there's a huge talent that is hidden there. And that's why This is a country where we find medical doctors, surgeons, healthcare professionals, driving taxis, delivering pizza. There's nothing wrong with delivering pizza. There's nothing wrong with driving a taxi. But the point is that there are people who have talents that we're not putting where they should be, where they can contribute to this country. It's not just about giving help to people, it's also capitalizing on the talent that Canadians bring from all over the world to this country. Thank you very much, Miigwech, Dhanyavad, Shukriya. These are just a few words I can say, but I'm sure there are more than that. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Mr. Khan. And I really appreciate that you bring up the fact that Canada loses out when it does not leverage the talent pool that's right under its nose, right there, because of prejudice, discrimination, racism, and just the inability to look at what's in front of you and appreciate it and see how you can develop that. And as Jody was talking about, allyship, you know, helping to mentor people into those professions and then supporting their career progression in those professions so that we don't have a shortage of nurses and doctors and therapists, etc. in Canada. Thank you very much for that. Next, we are going to hear from, I'm going to make sure I say your name right, Kadi Shah. Kadi Shah is a professional educator with over 15 years of experience across Canada in education and childcare. She's an active member of the local community, and she is the recipient of a Canada 150 anniversary award. She was also one of the torchbearers during the Toronto Pan Am and Parapan Games. And she has done a lot of research in immigration, racism, multiculturalism, the Asian diasporas, globalization, children, youth, and education. Kadi?
Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you, Gypsy, and everyone. Allow me to be here today. Sorry, I'm a little bit off weather. I'm having a fever, and I kind of try to, use the medication on it. So I might have some hiccups while I'm speaking. I study sociology at Carleton University. Meanwhile, my background is in the educational field, teaching young children. So today I would like to speak about my understanding of multiculturalism and the need to promote Canada as multicultural communities with interracial dependency. So as a Chinese in Canada myself, I also, along with other my fellow hip peoples, we encounter racist comments, blames, pretty much once in a while, without knowing, but it happened during our life. It could be as serious as about the spread of the COVID virus or the pricey housing market. Or it could be just as random as the parking lot that someone took other people's parking lot, and it doesn't happen to me. Like people would say, go back to China because I took their parking spot. So also as a naturalized Chinese Canadian, I'm also aware of the Canadian racist history of the exploited railway workers, which pay them like way less than the average rate. Meanwhile, when they want to immigrant, they will have to pay the head tax. It's quite expensive to get their entry into Canada, if they want to stay in Canada. And also the Chinese Exclusion Act, which prohibit Chinese to vote. Those are our racist history we can't deny. But meanwhile, also worth to mention in the history, Chinese immigrants already lived on the Turtle Land because of the Trans-Pacific economic activities, the gold rush, the fur and fish trade. So Chinese were already here participating in the socio-economic activities before Canada was founded in 1876. So that being said, when Chinese was one of the founding peoples on the Canada, the current land we call Canada, but they were not recognized at its birth. But I don't like to blame the history, but I like to learn from the history to see what we have achieved by now. So because always I believe humanity always sparkles and wins. So this is why I really appreciate back in the 70s, 1970s, our Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau state that like there's no singular culture in Canada, and they introduced multiculturalism. What I call is the preliminary, the cultural inclusion. Is a big significance, and I couldn't deny the what they have like make our Canada like what we are today, and also what we have achieved about the inclusion, what we have achieved by today. So, but however, highlighting the different cultural like identities is groundbreaking racial interactions, but that's not sufficient to allow the public to understand the importance of the racial harmony and the collaborations with each other. Because those identities, I think they portray a kind of a polarization of self and other. Not only the self from, the Europeans, to see others, but also we, like me, like Chinese, to see others, see all the other, different racial groups. So that's what I called is the preliminary, and which is during the past half century, we have achieved the recognition of the inclusion, but that's not enough. So that's brought me like some thinking aligned with the sociologist Emile Durkheim's organic solidarity. That's in his theory about organic solidarity, is because he's proposed like the nowadays, because in the modern society we highly require on each other's specialty and division of work. So like me, I work in the like educational field. Meanwhile, I take care of your children. Meanwhile, you are like whoever working in the manufacturer, you produce some like the necessities of my daily living. All the doctors will help me when I'm sick. The vice versa, even like like some IT people, farmers, they all help each other in our daily interactions of any nuance of our life. So that's interdependency. We cannot avoid it. It's already happening. It's like organs is already happening organically. So naturally and organically. So if then the any forms of racism will really being harmful and destructive. So that's something I think my understanding, I hope the next next phase of multiculturalism could focus on like advocating the interracial dependency. So like not only we're highlighting, we recognize, we cherish everybody's culture and and their identity, but meanwhile we also to teach each other we're in this community. This is Canada. We're all living here right now. So this is all like we're building our own Canadian culture, blending in everything, blending in everybody's culture. So we're independent, like interdependent. So that's what I was overall thinking about. My understanding of the like equality, like or how to say, the inclusion to go to the next phase of the development. I hope, because I have 3 children of my own, I hope the next generations of our children, grandchildren, like in another half decade, the half century of our life, they can be really beneficial from this, the second level. We not only cherish, but also we collaborate together. Yeah, that's what I want to say. Thank you so much. Oh, I'm holding my breath because I keep on coughing. Sorry. Yeah, thanks.
Joining us despite your health problem there. But yes, interdependence, that's pushing the multiculturalism dialogue to that next level. And that speaks to somebody earlier talked about concrete measures and actions that advance the opening of minds. And somebody mentioned the role of media. But since you're an educator, there's also the role of the school system. The school system in better educating little Canadian children about the overall history of Turtle Island and all the different groups that make up the larger Canadian family.
Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Dr. Raj Balkaran, who's a scholar of Sanskrit literature. He's written a number of academic works. including the stories behind the poses, which deals with yoga, Indian mythology and yoga. He is a continuing studies tutor at the Oxford Centre for Hindu Studies and founder of the Indian Wisdom School, an online platform applying ancient wisdom teachings to modern life. And he hosts the New Books in Indian Religions, where he interviews scholars in the field on their cutting-edge research. He also runs a thriving one-on-one life guidance practice. Dr. Balkaran.
Thank you for the kind introduction, and thank you for the invitation to the event organizers. I'm a touch hoarse as well. This body is also under the weather. And thank you all, co-panelists, for your rich contributions. You know, the panel in itself evinces not just the subject, but the power of coming together from different perspectives. So, hello, bonjour, namaste. Namaste was once an obscure word, but thanks to the proliferation of yoga, we all have a sense that this is an ancient Indian greeting. But what does it mean? It comes from the Sanskrit verbal root nam, which means to bow, to salute, to revere. So innate in the greeting is a reverence for you. But why should you be revered? What is it about you that is warranting reverence? Certainly, there's recognition that you are unique. You are a unique constellation of gender, orientation, age, ethnicity, ability, propensity, etc., 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 and all that moves because you're a moment in history, in time, and culture. And yet, there is ancient insight, ancient wisdom into what it means to be human that is encoded in the very greeting, this ancient Indic greeting. This wisdom is shared by many traditions that hail from Bharata, from South Asia, from Indic origin, Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism. But it's not so unique in that what this wisdom teaches us is that there's an aspect of you that is inalienably dignified. You have inalienable dignity and sovereignty. You are what the ancients call the self. Literally, in Sanskrit, it's called the Atman, the self. What do you mean the self? Do you mean the teaching self? Do you mean the shaved head self? Do you mean the podcasting self? No, the self which watches on. The self which was watching on when you were 15, now that you're 25, 35, 45, etc., etc., you're able to perceive all the changes because there's an aspect of you that is inalienably dignified and sovereign. And we are all equal. We are all equal in sharing this spiritual aspect of self, whether we want to call it soul, whether we want to call it Atman, whether we want to call it the human spirit. It is not possible to be a human being absent this active ingredient, the human spirit. Now, there are many shades of conditioning that may inform the type of human being you are in terms of your uniqueness. But undergirding that is something that is equal to all beings. And it is the very foundation. Potentially, that recognition is the foundation of equality, because we are incapable of discriminating when we recognize the humanity of the person. And we are capable of recognizing the humanity of the person when we are discriminating. They're mutually exclusive in a sense. There are those that even throughout various epochs of oppression, throughout, for example, the American slave trade, there were those in white skin who knew that this wasn't right. They were able to see, despite their conditioning, they're however few and far between. There were patriarchs who saw that women were people. There were folks in white skin in that time who saw that Black folks were people. They had the recognition of humanity. And so certainly we have to strive to change and reform society. And without question, we've made thunderous progress, 30,000-foot view. The stock trends up and down. Some days are pretty low. But overall, the stock is trending upwards in terms of this project we're engaged in. Never before have Homo sapiens, in 200,000 years that our genome has been in place, as far as we know, Never before have we had to abandon our instinctive tribalism and learn to be a globe. This is the problem. It may take a century or two. We are getting there. But perhaps an active ingredient of our social transformation is our own personal and spiritual transformation, so that we can recognize the inalienable dignity and the sovereignty of all people, because that is the only strata in which we are all equal. That is the strata which levels all of these differences. And in recognizing that, a natural evolute of that recognition is what? Is compassion. You have the same self that I have. He, she, they have the same self that we have. And in that recognition, then we can sally forth, ideally treating individuals and groups and movements as we would wish to be treated. Grounded in the sovereignty of ourself. We are not insecure trying to steal someone else's power, to step on ahead, to be a little taller. And maybe there's room for this wisdom. Now, this is more spirituality than religion insofar as I treat this as a buffet. Maybe it's the Indian buffet, but maybe it's a multicultural buffet at which you'll find a little dal, a little feta cheese, a little, some sushi, etc., etc. This is the buffet of the marketplace of ideas, the global ideas that we have, that we may benefit from. And perhaps there's something of the spiritual wisdom of the dignity and sovereignty of the self that might serve as a guiding principle for humanity, for equality, that might serve to help us to, as Councillor King said, bend the arc of history towards justice. The recognition of our inalienable dignity. And naturally, there's fraternity there, or sorority, to be inclusive, because if I'm busy seeing that the same spark behind my eyes lies behind yours, then I'm not as busy seeing what might be different about you that is conditioning. That is my simple message for today. Namaste. Thank you all.
And that is a powerful and amazing message, recognizing the humanity in that other person. And I think all of our faith traditions have a similar tenet: love thy neighbor as thyself, do unto others as you'd have do unto you, etc., etc., etc. So next we have Judith King Matheson, who's a trained agent of conscious evolution student of the late Barbara Marx Hubbard. And as the program director of the OWL Wellness Learning website, she sees in creating circle conversations of the heart great hope for humanity's journey towards forward. As a recognized Universal Peace Ambassador, she's well known for her advocacy and activist work as it regards Indigenous rights and all humanity caring for each other and the earth and its waters. Judith?
Achievement-rich, and thank you so much. All the panelists have brought such a breath of fresh air to the consciousness of anyone blessed to be listening today, to the unity of the diversity that we're engaging in these conversations. And I particularly want to say Chigmix to Verna McGregor, the elder, whom I am so blessed to have on my path in life. As a person privileged to have met the late grandfather, William Commanda, the Algonquin chief, who is highly recognized for his tireless love for not just his people, but for all citizens of planet Mother Earth. And a lot of who I am today is because of spiritual teachers and leaders, such as Verna and many of her elders and other grandmothers and grandfathers, but particularly for the late elder grandfather, William Commanda. I am going to be speaking today from the lens of being a very privileged woman who has been blessed to live in 5 different provinces of Canada and 6 different cultures on the planet. And in life, you many times will hear a person speak and will bring a voice that speaks very much to what is in your side, your own heart, and resonates with your soul. So I particularly want to thank Rajay Balkaran, who just spoke a moment ago, because he has hit the nail on the head as to who I am as an aspiring agent of conscious evolution, awakening to the best inside myself, my full spiritual potentiality to be the best I can be as I walk on the path of Indigenous people from all over planet Earth. From my perspective, they are our greatest teachers, because at the root of everything, we are all Indigenous. We all have ancestors that have blessed us with life, that have given us the opportunity to be at this time on planet Mother Earth, where we have much to learn about how far we've come as one universal humanity, but also how much farther we have to go and how much farther we are going in leaders such as Gypsy Gosh and many other programs of conversations on subjects such as today. Because when we begin to live what equality, equanimity, and the power of fraternity really is, we begin to see that all the wonderful wisdom that each voice has shared today from their unique perspectives, together as one universal human family, we come together at a time on this planet where there is much hope. And in us all is this hope growing. For the sacred tree of life that comes from all of different traditions, that we are to become beings of bringing forth great hope. For in as much darkness as there is also light. And I am a blessed human being to have met people like the late William Commanda, to sit in the circles of the late elder Elijah Harper, to sit and listen to the Indigenous voices of the grandmothers, to work with and create programs, being blessed to be on programs such as Rabbi Balka, who has a book as part of his legacy on kindness, the power of care and compassion and kindness and human relationship that connects us way beyond the intellect, way beyond trying to understand what human beings could never understand. But we're coming to a time where beginning to live the truth helps us to claim and rejoice that we're the ones that are called to live the truth, so others may rejoice that the time that the grandmothers have been telling me for many decades is coming. That is, in much pain as we have compassion. That what is most important is the human family, the mothers, the fathers, and the children that are coming to remind us that what is most important is the one universal human family that is learning to, as Grandfather William Commanda has invited us to, get in the same boat and same canoe and paddle together and row together and work together and create projects such as this. I am very blessed to meet leaders like yourselves serving on the Capital Region Interfaith Council. Back in 1995, when the mayor, Rob Shirley, had a vision to bring all the different intercultural beings living on this watershed together, to begin to listen and share with each other how much unites us and how much we can learn together, how we can expand consciousness and awareness. And as a Christian, I often think of the words of the Christ when he was teaching to his disciples. He said, "You cannot possibly understand what I'm talking about right now, but there will come a time where you will begin to understand." Now, understanding beyond the intellect is something deeper than we know, and it's part of what our last speaker was talking about. It's about going deep into the core of the human condition. Beyond the pain and the trauma is the compassion. And in as much compassion as I have for others, I need to have that compassion for myself. And so as we move forward in this watershed of the Algonquin territory, we can begin to understand why we must learn the history of this land. This is the sacred democracy of the Algonquin people. This is where their people have lived for thousands of years. They have much to teach us to remember that we all come from nomadic people. My ancestors were settlers here as well. I was born during the War of 1944, and as a person that has just turned into my 80th year, I can see there is a new cycle emerging for all of us. It is a new circle of life that seeks to help us expand consciousness, open our minds and hearts, and create projects to walk and work together. And as we get better at doing that, we will begin to see how much we have in common in celebrating the joy of being given life, life that we can bear great fruit, because we are the ones that have come to be on the planet at a time when our voices matter, and our voices need to be heard, and our actions need to be clear. We need to work together to bring forth the new energy of joy, for in as much darkness as we see on the planet, again, as the newspaper reporting seem to love to express and make bigger than it is sometimes, we have good people walking everywhere in communities all over the earth, caring for each other. And as we have been talking about today, it takes a whole community to raise a child, but it takes a whole country to waken up to its story of becoming a beacon of light and hope for a planet looking for hope. But we must honor the languages of our Indigenous founding peoples who were here and welcomed our settlers. And without their welcoming and caring for us and respecting the land, we would not be here today. And newcomers would not be coming today. And so for me, from my perspective, as a very privileged woman, to be a foreign service career spouse for over 30 years, traveling many cultures, being embraced by many people, opening my mind and my heart so I could see clearly that I had to sit in the circles of William Commanda to truly learn why the earth needed all of us to come together to listen to the story of listening to a kindergarten student, the book that was written by him many decades ago. And I'm hoping that will be republished today as we speak so that more people can learn what is this land that we're living on and why is it so important, peoples of all the earth that come here from many cultures, to share this land and in a good way to get better at listening to each other. Not listening just from the head, but listening from the heart, because it's in the heart that the new cosmology of a new human race is rising up. And we are bringing forth the light that will touch the darkness to bring forth the beingness of beyond extreme polarity back to the balance that the world needs. So I want to give great gratitude to all of you that have organized this theme today, because it's a theme that is very much needed for these times. But we need to not know the words, we need to begin to live the words of equality, equanimity, and the wonderful power of fraternity, because all of our ancestors have wanted the same thing. They've come here to find hope. And it's in hope that we will move forward to give hope to all future children and all future generations. So chi miigwech to you all. And I would just invite you that in the fall of September, coming this year, I have a vision on September the 8th to see an international gathering take place on International Grandparents' Day, to simply walk together to the behind the War Museum on Albert Island. There's a bridge. And to gather there and walk, all ages, all cultures, with no agenda, simply to be in nature, walk on this sacred watershed, and look beyond that bridge up the River West, and you will see another bridge. And it's just recently, in the last few years, been named Elder William Commanda Bridge. And to honor the spirit and his vision for not just his people, but for all people of the world, to be a culture of peace and a circle of all nations. Miigwech, and thank you all for walking, connecting, and working together. This is our destiny. Miigwech.
Thank you so much, Judith. I mean, all of us were nodding. I was at church earlier today. I would be standing up and saying hallelujah because, sister, you preached. You really just preached right now. And thank you so much for presencing two people who have really inspired many of us, including myself. The late Elder William Commanda, who's a very good friend to my own community, both here in Canada and in South Africa, and the late Reuven Volka, our beloved Rabbi Volka, with whom I had the privilege of working in the United Way and with the Kindness Week initiative. Thank you so much. And somebody earlier was mentioning about the role media can play. So all of this joy that we should be bringing forth, all of these amazing people, including people on this panel who are doing such good, positive, nurturing work for society, the media should focus more on them than the bad guys, than the people who are working hard at destroying and dividing. So I'm hoping that your vision will come alive and that many of us will join you on September the 8th. And we have one last speaker, last but not least, a francophone. I'm French speaking, so, and he is a leader in the French Canadian community. Marcel Morin, the general manager of Maison de la Francophonie d'Ottawa, who has over 30 years experience in French education in Ontario, including 16 as a school principal. He's a proud Francophone from Northern Ontario, and he is very proud of his role as a cultural agent promoting the French language and plural Francophone culture in Ontario. And his intervention is even more relevant to us as right now, March is le mois de la francophonie, celebrating all of our French speakers around the world. Monsieur Morin.
Can you all see?
Yes.
Okay.
Mesdames et messieurs, c'est avec un immense plaisir que je prends la parole devant vous aujourd'hui en tant que direction générale de la Maison de la Francophonie d'Ottawa. Notre maison est un lieu de rencontre et de partage dédié à la célébration de notre francophonie plurielle, où chacune et chacun trouve sa place et où les valeurs de respect, de compassion et d'appartenance sont au cœur de notre action. Lorsque nous évoquons l'accueil, nous parlons bien plus que d'une simple formalité. Nous parlons d'un pilier essentiel qui soutient les fondements de notre communauté. Nous ne cherchons pas seulement à inclure les autres, mais à leur offrir un sentiment profond d'appartenance à notre famille francophone ensemble. C'est dans cette famille que chacune et chacun est valorisé, respecté et aimé. L'attention portée à autrui est la valeur qui guide nos interactions et renforce nos liens. Dans un monde marqué parfois par la division et la confusion, il est vital de cultiver un état d'esprit positif. Le positivisme est une force qui nous permet de croire en la possibilité de solutions et en notre capacité à apporter un changement positif. Au sein de notre francophonie plurielle, riche de sa diversité culturelle et linguistique, le positivisme est une valeur essentielle qui nous aide à surmonter les défis et à construire un avenir meilleur. C'est pourquoi je suis ravi de céder la parole à Magali Morin, une jeune demoiselle de 11 ans qui nous éclairera sur l'importance du positivisme à travers le monde et son impact spécifique au sein de notre communauté francophone diversifiée. Sa propre réflexion personnelle nous permettra de mieux comprendre comment cultiver cet état d'esprit positif et non seulement transformer nos vies individuelles, mais aussi renforcer les liens qui nous unissent en tant que communauté. En conclusion, je tiens à exprimer ma profonde gratitude à chacune et chacun d'entre vous pour votre engagement en faveur de l'ouverture à l'autre et de notre propre ouverture d'esprit. Ensemble, nous avons le pouvoir de construire un monde où chacune et chacun se sent chez elle, chez lui, où la diversité est non seulement célébrée, mais respectée comme une source de richesse inestimable. Je vous remercie infiniment et voici Mademoiselle Magali Morin.
Bonjour à vous toutes et tous. Je m'appelle Magali Morin et je vous suis reconnaissante de m'accorder votre attention. Je souhaiterais aborder le thème de l'optimisme autour du monde. À mes yeux, l'optimisme mondial veut dire la collaboration entre les différents pays, la capacité à faire des efforts pour percevoir le côté positif des choses et la tolérance envers les imperfections de l'autre. En raison de nos différences, il est possible de créer des amitiés même si nous avons différentes préférences. Chacun a le droit à sa propre opinion et il est important de respecter cela. Aujourd'hui, je vais vous parler du respect des diversités, de l'optimisme face aux situations difficiles et de la création des relations positives. Accepter les différences des autres est essentiel. Se concentrer sur soi-même est impoli, mais se moquer de quelqu'un est encore pire. Il faut accepter les gens tels qu'ils sont en respectant leurs particularités. Cela permet à tout le monde de se sentir bien et de se développer sans avoir peur d'être critiqué. En étant ouvert d'esprit, nous construisons une société meilleure. Admettons-le, respecter les autres est plus agréable que de leur faire du mal. Également, l'optimisme face aux situations difficiles consiste en une attitude positive malgré les problèmes ou les difficultés auxquelles on fait face. Plutôt que de s'affaisser au découragement, l'optimisme essaie de voir les chances cachées dans chaque problème. En adoptant l'optimisme, on s'arme d'une force intérieure pour surmonter les obstacles, favorisant ainsi une meilleure qualité de vie et une approche plus saine des défis de la vie. L'établissement de relations positives occupe une place cruciale dans le maintien de l'optimisme au quotidien. En cultivant des liens de respect, de compréhension et d'entraide, nous façonnons un environnement qui encourage les attitudes positives. Ces relations agissent comme des piliers solides qui soutiennent notre esprit optimiste. Lorsque nous sommes entourés de personnes qui encouragent le positivisme, partagent des expériences constructives et offrent un soutien sincère, cela influence positivement notre propre perspective. Ainsi, la création de relations positives devient un moteur essentiel pour maintenir un esprit optimiste. En résumé, voir le monde avec optimisme ouvre une vision positive qui va au-delà des frontières. En valorisant les différences, en faisant preuve de compassion et en cultivant des relations positives, nous contribuons à forger un avenir où la coopération, la compréhension mutuelle et le respect sont des piliers fondamentaux. En adoptant cette attitude constructive, nous pouvons collaborer efficacement pour surmonter les défis mondiaux, créant ainsi un monde où l'optimisme sert de moteur pour un avenir plus harmonieux et équitable. Merci.
Wow, that's what a great way to sort of wrap up all the different presentations. The perspective of the generation that we're working for, that we are striving to resolve, the issues of inequality and racism and hate for Magali Morin. who very eloquently speaks about everything that you just last 2 hours, the compassion, the open-mindedness, approaching relationships with positivity, and valuing differences as opposed to looking at them as something to fight over, wedge issue, and a way to sort of hoist ourselves above everybody else. So thank you so much. Merci infiniment, Magali Morin et Monsieur Morin, for what you do to celebrate the diversity in the Francophonie, because I myself being French speaking, and some of you as well might be, the racism and the prejudice is not just in, you know, in racial communities, it's also in language communities, Anglophone versus Francophone. So thank you very much. I think we've come to the end of our presentation, so I think I'll hand it back to Gypsy Gosh. This has been so amazing. I hope all of you are going to keep in touch with each other. I would love to stay in touch with all of you, and that this is not a one-off, that this is a continuing conversation, right? Gypsy.
We have to. We have to. And you will see some more organizations coming up, some more people coming up, and it's already in my mind. And you know, when I came to Canada, I just want to share a story. When I came to Canada, you know, I was facing a lot of challenges because my husband would not want to settle here. I had to settle here with my son. My son was being treated for cancer. My son is a cancer survivor. And he was bullied because he was a brown kid. He was bullied. He was the only dark-skinned person in a Catholic school. I don't want to name the school, but I did not get any help from the guidance counselor. I used to go there. I used to sit down. I used to cry every single day. He was only 12 years old. He used to come home and manifest all his frustrations, throwing away the curries from the fridge because he was named Indian curry. Nobody would call him by his name, Jyoti. He has a beautiful name, Jyoti Raditya. Everybody would call him Indian curry. They would make a video in his name, and they would come and shoot my house from, and he covered, you know, the letters, 504. He covered the letters of my house, and my mom was there. His dad was not there, a cancer survivor. Everybody knew. The elders of the school, the authority of the school, they were helpless because the kids who were bullying, they are also children, and they could not be, they could not be punished. They could not be thrown out of the school. They had to be suspended. I still have that nightmare, Sarah. I still have that nightmare. And there I was determined. I promised to myself, no, Canada being a multicultural mosaic, when the government is calling immigrants from different nations, we have to be respected. We need that respect. We need that love. We need that caring. Otherwise, our children will not survive. Our children will not become a beautiful flower. They will nourish and cherish the hate, and they will become criminals in future. In fact, if you don't get love from your neighborhood, from your community, from your family, from your friends, you nourish hatred in between, in between your hearts. So I had to change his school from Catholic to public school because he was not respected. And he changed his food habit. He changed his food habit only because of my dark skins. And I'm very sad about it. Now, I have promised myself to work with the school boards and work with the children. I have to do that, and I want all your support. We need to do something for our children. Our children will be suffering. Just as somebody said, we are spoiling our generations. Yes, we are spoiling because we are teaching wrong things to the children at home. Racism is not born. Children are not at fault. They are being taught at home by parents. Parents have to be counseled first. Parents have to learn first. When Canada is an immigrant nation of different colors, different religions, different races, everybody has to be respected equally. And the terms Islamophobia, Hinduphobia, anti-Semitism, whatever, should not even exist. We should not even think that we will not be respected. We all have to try. We have to involve the children. The children, they can share their tiffin, they can share their lunch, they can share their notes, they can study together and grow up and make this country a beautiful place. Otherwise, they have to go to work, they have to do businesses, they have to go to communities. I don't know, where is the social cohesion coming? If so many things are coming up, I mean, everybody is blaming each other, everybody's hating. And media, yes, Jamal, I agree, media plays a very bad role, you know, very bad role. I don't know how this, solution will come up when people will start respecting each other and people will learn that people of different colors have the same blood. We have the same blood. We have the same organs. And we might have different accent, but we speak the same language of love and harmony. I come from a multicultural country. I come from India. I know, what is multiculturalism. So this cannot be, I mean, this should come from within. So we will try our best. I want all your support, and thank you, Jamal. I have to thank Jamal. Jamal was under such pressure, actually. I understand there's a conflict going on. I thank Jamal. I thank Noor Qadri. I thank you so much for supporting and for being and for partnering with us today. Thank you so much. Jamal is a brother. Jamal has been so supportive since I took the initiative to bring communities together. And Sarah, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jody, for joining. Thank you, Dr. Humar. Thank you, Judith. Thank you, Raj Balkaran. Rolson, thank you very much for your patience. Thank you so much. And I promise you, Rolson, I promise you, I will do my work and with respect to everyone. And you will see a wonderful festival coming up with all communities again. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you, Gypsy. Thank you for organizing this wonderful thing and persisting with it with all your effort.
Yeah. I had to take an anti-stress tablet, in fact, ashwagandha. I bought ashwagandha on Friday because I'm going through a lot of things at home. My son has a bad foot.
I can understand. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Judith, it was a great seeing you again after all our multicultural, our days of pick.
Thanks, Gypsy. Bye-bye.
We have to talk in person soon. Bye-bye.
Bye now. Bye now. Bye, everyone. Bye.